Alright, hey everybody, this is Frothy here, coming for a combat tutorial with the Summoner. This was inspired by my guildmate Goddess, so shout out to her. Thanks everybody for watching. Let's hop right into this by running through here at Saints headquarters, straight to the striking dummy. So we're talking about basic combat and the Summoner particularly. So what are we looking at? We're looking at rotations, we're looking at buffs, debuffs, damage. That's what we're calling our rotation. So a rotation is the sequence or pattern of abilities that you use in combat. For those of you who are new to MMO playing, you're probably not familiar with some of this terminology, so let's hit some of the basics. You're doing your buffs, which are stuff to empower the party. Debuffs, which weaken the boss or target. So examples of those, you've got a buff right here, which is to increase the party's damage by 5%. And then we have a debuff right here, which lowers the target's intelligence mine by 10%. You can see that right there. Debuffs are particularly important for you yourself in combat. You'll see them, in my case, up here. You can see my buffs right here. My debuffs would pop up before that, and on the boss, they'll be right here. Debuffs particularly that you need to look out for are vulnerability stacks, or vuln stacks as you hear them commonly called. They increase the damage you take, and then Doom often is in some of these dungeons or raids, and if Doom goes off, you will die instantaneously. So moving on, we've got dots. Dots are a big part of the Summoner rotation, particularly right here, miasma and bio. So why are dots important? Dots are our main tick marks for the rotation. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it's the timer that's going to tell you how much of your phase you've got left. You pretty much always want to have everything within a 30-second timer, because that's how long it takes for miasma and bio to finish their full tick. So that's going to lead into cooldowns. Cooldowns is going to be the other big limiting factor for the Summoner, particularly in Kindle over here, which has a 2-minute cooldown, and Trance, which has about a 60-second cooldown. So think about it in stages. You've got 30 seconds, which needs to fill in a 60-second, which needs to fill in a 2 minutes. So as you can see, there's a lot of layers and a lot of time that has to be managed with the Summoner. However, it's not as bad as it sounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by breaking down the rotation, a single loop, into 2 phases, a main phase and a filler or a down phase. Now what do I mean by filler or down phase? That's going to be the phase that you're trying to keep up your damage and make sure that you can lead back into the main phase. The main phase is where you're going to hit most of your buttons. That's going to be most of your abilities that you're using. So for level 50, main phase is fairly simple. Let's get right into it. So I'm not going to pull out Ifrit. There's no need to at this point. Notice that it's a single target, so we'd be using Ifrit instead of Garuda. If it was multiple targets, we'd use Garuda. If any of you are wondering why we don't use Titan, Titan is a survivability pet. If you need Titan, pull him out while you're questing. Otherwise, you don't need him in dungeons or raids. So, jumping back into level 50. What's the level 50 main phase? Well, you're going to open up with Miasma. Then you're going to hit Bio, followed by Energy Drain. This will give you your Aether charges here. Hit Ruin 1 in your case, followed by Ruin 2 and Fester, and then followed by Ruin 1 again, which is Ruin 3 here, Ruin 2, and Fester. Now, I did that slowly, so we had about 10 seconds left. On average, you'll see it's about 15 seconds of the 30 seconds of Miasma and Bio. I'll do it again at speed so you can see it. Just remember your dots first, then the trio, Ruins and Fester. So here we go. Miasma, Bio, Ruins, your Festers, Ruin again, and Fester. And that's almost right there, 17 seconds. So what that does is that completes the main phase, and it opens us up for the second part of the rotation, the second part of the loop, which is the filler. For level 50, filler is lacking. So after you go through your main phase, we'll initiate right here, going into main phase. We'll enter into your filler phase, heading back into the ruin section of the main phase. Repeat, and now we're in the filler. Hit 2 ruins, hit Enkindle, and then cast Ruin again. I recommend using Ruin 1 or Ruin 3 for this section. And I'll get to that in a moment. So I'm entering back into main phase to show something here. As we get back through main phase, we're going to hit a phase where Enkindle is down, and at level 50 you don't have any more abilities at this point. The only option left is Ruin 3. And the reason why I call this a down phase is because this is your only option. Your GPS will pretty much start to drop off a little bit at this point because you'll have to wait for Enkindle to either proc again or your main phase to reset. Now, why Ruin 3 or 1 instead of 2? Well, Ruin 3 has a lower cost than Ruin 2, and it technically does higher damage at baseline. So if you're going to spam something, spam Ruin 1, spam Ruin 3, and not 2. So, what's this look like at level 60? Well, level 60 only really changes a few things. It adds Death Flare to the proc, and you'll still have Enkindle. So, you'll go through main phase, you'll go through your filler phase, hit Enkindle, or Death Flare, whichever one you want to do first. I suggest hitting Enkindle first, and then hitting Death Flare, or you can do Death Flare and then Kindle. It won't really matter. Either which way, you'll enter back into a third main phase and then fall into a down phase. Level 70 is going to change some things up. So we're going to re-talk about the main phase real quick. Main phase is going to change because you have to have your Eggy up for this. He should always be up because he deals a decent amount of damage. But what's going to change is Ruin 3 is going to have changed at 60, but now we're going to use Eggy Assault to proc Ruin 4, and then use the ruins as normal past that. So we're going to have Ruin 4 and Eggy Assault now. I'm going to let this reset, send Ifrit away real quick, and redo that real quick. So once again, it's going to be use Ruin and Eggy Assault 1 to proc Ruin 4, and then you'll do Ruin and 4 as kind of normal. So, showing that again, I'm going to pull out Ifrit and then hit Energy Drain, Ruin with Eggy Assault 1, and then Fester, then Ruin and Ruin 4, which replaces Ruin 2. And then at 70, it's going to be Death Flare for a filler phase, Enkindle, Death Flare again, and then you're going to have Bahamut. At 80, this is going to expand to Phoenix. So what's this all going to look like in total? It's pretty difficult for me to show you each individual level rotation, so we're going to go through this, and you're going to see how it's woven together, and you should be able to replicate it from there on. So pulling Ifrit back out, we're going to go through the whole arc rotation, if you want to call it that, the full combat load, which is going to be about 4 main phases, 4 filler phases, leading into a final main phase and a down phase. So I'm going to open up here with the my own bio, Energy Drain, Assault, Going through the main phase of the rotation. Hitting the 2 ruins right here. I'm going to hit Enkindle first. Spike that damage. Okay, some more ruins right here. Reset Maya and Bio. Good God, I cannot talk. Once again, going through the main phase. Right here, we're going to do 2 ruins again. 2 ruin 3. And we're going to use Death Flare this time. Another ruin. I'm just going to let it tick off. Doesn't matter. Going back into main phase. Notice this is the 3rd one. Finishing out main phase, going into filler 3 with Bahamut. Spiking that damage. Bahamut is going to tick over a little bit, so just watch your procs. Resetting back to main phase right here. Notice he's ticked off by the time I get to using that. So we're still right on track for using our main phase as normal. Finished main phase. Phoenix is now up. Going to filler phase 4. Notice we'll have a bit of overlap here again. This is where I like to use Try Disaster. Energy Drain. Just use that burst. Back to main phase with the ruin rotation right here. Filler phase right here. Back to the normal rotation for main phase. And as you see, there is a little bit of overlap. So what eventually will happen is, due to a boss, and this is kind of a reality check for the summoner, right? Like, because I said there's going to be a downtime, and obviously right there, we had kept up the rotation to where we could always spike the filler section with either Enkindle, Death Flare, Bahamut, Phoenix. It just kept going through. The issue is that what's going to happen is, as you get into combat and you're moving around, you won't be able to hit every sequence of that perfectly. The timing will get off and you will almost always have a down period. It's kind of just an unfortunate point, but that covers the basic combat role of the summoner. So what else is there to know? Well, that was single target. There's still multi-target. Now the big difference here is just going to be, we're going to use Garuda instead of Ifrit. He does about half the damage, but he hits more targets. The other additions is going to be using Bane in the main phase. So to show you, we'll use the level 50 rotation. You'll do Miasma, Bio, Bane to spread it, and we'll hit Energy Siphon instead of Energy Drain. Then we'll do the Ruins, which I just messed up. So Ruin 3, Ruin 2, Pain Flare instead of Fester, and then Ruin 3 and Ruin 2 and Pain Flare. Another thing you can do is you can trade Ruin 1 or Ruin 3 for Outburst, which deals a little bit less damage, but also hits more targets, much like Garuda. So that's going to be your main differences. Your filler section will not change at all. So there you go. That's pretty much Summoner for you. It's a bit long, but not as bad as it seems at first encounter. The other thing that you need to look out for with Summoner is... get out of combat over here. So what else do you need to look out with Summoner? Well, the big thing is your role as one of the only 2 DPS that can insta-cast a resurrection spell. The insta-cast is Swift Cast here, makes the next spell an immediate cast, and resurrection is right here on me. So what does this do? This allows you to instantaneously revive somebody. So as I said, part of the reality of combat is as you're running with people, you'll have to break your rotation to try to pick somebody up off the floor. And that'll screw up your timings, and you'll try to have to reset everything, and oftentimes this will cause that down phase, even if theoretically you shouldn't have one. With all that in mind, thank you for watching today, and I hope y'all have a nice day.